Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this opportunity we have to meet in council tonight, and we're thankful for the privilege it is for us to represent our citizens here in Cardston. We ask you to bless us with a clear mind that we might be able to speak to the issues and be able to make decisions that will most benefit our people. And we pray for thy Spirit to be with us now in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, so today is the 25th of June. It's our regular town council meeting. We have the media. We have Corey McCarthy with Channel 32. I'm grateful to have him there. And we're going to call this meeting to order. So there's an agenda there. You may have had did everybody get it?
Theirs is all
It's inside there. Okay, fine. All right, so we need to adopt the agenda then. Councillor,
To adopt the agenda,
Councillor Drew, go ahead.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda for June the 11th.
June 25th.
June 25th.
Yeah, that would be better. So, all in favor? Thank you very much. All right, so as noted, we will have a delegation at 6 p.m. for the brewing bylaw regarding the solar farm. In between, we're going to try to do as much work as we can. Under item 5, adoption of minutes, we had the minutes of June 11, so I reviewed them, found the content to be accurate. Somebody wants to approve them. Councillor Selk?
Like a hand.
Okay, so you're approving the
Nope. I move
Regular.
to adopt the minutes.
of June 11. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. All right, so let's go directly to 6, bylaw and policy. Bylaw 1582F. If you remember, we already passed the first reading of this utility bylaw amendment, and we could pass a second and third at this point. So, Councillor Selk?
I move second reading of bylaw 1582F, utility bylaw.
Okay, so that's a requirement from the province to do it properly, and from, no.
on the freezing lines.
Yeah, freezing
Oh,
water
that's a
lines.
freezing line, sorry about this one. The lines, yes, we corrected that. So, all in favor? Thank you very much. I need third reading, Councillor Court?
Make a motion for third reading.
Okay, for bylaw
For bylaw
1582F,
1582F.
utility bylaw amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much. So, this one is passed. 6B, bylaw 1683, FCSS board bylaw. If you remember, it was to review the governance model and to kind of give a better description of the role of the manager or director and of the board itself. Councillor Drew?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll
so
make a
that,
motion for bylaw.
Second reading?
1680, yeah, second reading for 1683 FCSS board bylaw.
okay. Questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you very much. Third reading, Councillor Bengry?
Now make motion to do third reading of 1683, the FCSS board bylaw.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you very much. The next one is a little bit more complicated. Bylaw 1649F, electricity distribution bylaw amendment. So, as you can see, you have a one-pager that represent the motion itself, and is to try to help you understand that when we make decision, it's according to four different pieces of, 4 or 5, I think it's 4 pieces of legislations, and we need to be cognizant of those pieces when we do any business under the electrical. So, do you want to discuss this amendment? Do you have anything that you want more explanation about? In fact, there's 6 items under which the regulation is based. Do you need some?
Yeah, were there amendments to this?
No.
Just the
Okay, because I
dates.
was looking for the red.
Yeah, I'm always looking for the red too.
So
It was an amendment already.
what happened is so you passed all of this in its previous form a month ago or a couple weeks ago, and it was all effective May 1st. When we also passed the regulated rate option and default service provider agreement with NMAX, which it references all these attachments, that was a June 1st effective date. When we submitted everything to the AUC, they requested that all the schedules were of the same date as the agreement. So no content has changed at all,
It's just a date.
except for the effective dates of the schedule.
Just moved up a month.
Now,
Okay.
one thing I just want to check, and Shem, did you just get my message? Yeah, I'm looking it up. I have it as F, but I think it might be G. I just want to confirm that. It's G. Yeah, so when you pass a reading, you pass it as Amendment G, not F.
It says 1649G on
Yeah,
here.
one of your backgrounder does, but on the agenda I had it as F.
Okay.
And it
Yes,
should be G.
yes, yes, yes.
So that's
yes.
my mistake, but I
Okay,
just saw
all
that
right,
as we were
so
talking about
it's
it.
bylaw 1649G, not F.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So the intent here would be to do first, second, allow for third, and do third, because it's just a tweaking. It's not affecting any of our customers. Okay? Councillor Brown?
I make a motion to first reading of the amended bylaw 1649G, electricity distribution bylaw amendment.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you very much. So we can do second, Councillor Barnes?
I move to allow for vote
No,
on-
don't allow.
Okay,
Just,
I move bylaw 1649G, electricity distribution bylaw amendment.
second reading.
Second reading.
Yeah. All in favor? Thank you. Councillor Court, you had your hands up. You want
I'll
to
make
do
a
the
motion
allowing?
to allow for third read of bylaw 1649G, electricity distribution bylaw amendment.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. So we need one more. We need the third and last. Councillor Selk?
I move third reading of bylaw 1649G, electricity distribution bylaw amendment.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. So this bylaw is now in effect with the proper dates. All right. The next one, 6D, if you remember, this one had to do with a request for a last post funding of a tombstone marker that is beyond and above the height that is in our previous bylaws. So this amendment just says that any veteran memorial or sign or whatever it might be will be approved. Yes.
Just one other item we also had an issue earlier with, we had put a piece about trees and shrubs on grave sites.
Yes.
So we've just tweaked a little bit of wording in there. It used to say that the caretaker could approve it, and we're just having that it must be approved by the town.
Yeah.
Just so you know the background, somebody potentially, I guess, well, they did. They planted a tree on a site. This spring they went and it was gone, and they were thinking we took it out. They were very upset about the whole thing. We didn't know anything about it. I mean, it was a tiny little tree. Chances are when the drifts came in, it simply ruined it. And so we're just clarifying, we just made a couple clarifying comments about trees and shrubs on grave sites in the cemetery.
All right. So question about that? Seeing none, we can pass first reading for this bylaw. Councillor Brown?
I make a motion to receive first reading for bylaw 1634A, cemetery bylaw amendment.
Okay. Questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you very much. The last 6E we will not address until we have the public hearing. So, under 7, other business, the NRCB letter and response. This is a letter that has been crafted by Jeff on my behalf, and I must say it's a very good letter. The only thing that I would say maybe needs a little softening, there is a word inside there that says stricter regulation, and I would say maybe what should be said is enhanced regulation, because the whole idea after discussing with Jeff is that we appreciate the regulation that NRCB has in place, but the county and the town may want to have enhanced regulation beyond and above. So I think rather stricter is enhanced.
I like that word better.
Okay, so if we could just change that word, I think the rest is fine.
Do you want me to speak to this for a
Please go ahead.
So by all means, I'm always a little hesitant to draft a letter and put the mayor's name at the bottom, but
As we all are.
yeah. So I figure I got away with one word change. I'm getting somewhere.
Doing pretty good.
We're really progressing. So
High five there, Joe.
really, at the end of
I'm
the day,
so
council,
sorry.
I think it's important you take a position on this issue.
Yeah.
Because while the number of animals is not proposed to increase, what we're saying is we're effectively okay with that being a permanent fixture on the boundary of the community for the next 50
Generation
years,
also.
however long this new infrastructure might last. And what we're going to see, in my opinion, is increased conflict between that use and the encroaching residential use. And so I don't think it's reasonable to say the operation has to leave. I don't think we don't have that authority, nor is it reasonable. But I don't know that we need to condone additional infrastructure on that site.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think sooner or later, smell is an issue, unsightliness is an issue.
And just so you know, too, the county has already requested a position from the town on this because they're having this hearing at their next council meeting in July. And so we told them we'd have a position following this council meeting.
Councillor.
And they are concerned about our position on it.
Councillor Bengry, Councillor Cole.
Jeff, new regulations for basically feedlot operations. Has that been grandfathered in, that operation out there?
Right,
Because
correct.
they can build new buildings and
Yep.
so forth?
So I don't believe that they would be allowed to increase the herd. I don't think that's an option for them. But again, that's not what he's proposing. He's proposing new facilities, which I think will be an improvement on, for manure management and keeping things dry and that. I think that's a positive thing, and I tried to acknowledge that in the letter, that those are good things. But for the long term, is that still the best location? That's my concern.
Secondly, Jeff, are these buildings going anywhere near the cemetery? Because that
Question.
that thing goes up to the cemetery and.
Well, there's a diagram in the very back in his application. The building's actually intended to go immediately adjacent to 12th Street,
And that's not a good
running
place.
parallel with 12th Street. That's the proposed location. So I put in the letter, and I would welcome some feedback, that I said one of the options that might be reasonable is to push it all the way west. Because we don't see encroaching residential development there.
No.
And it's a barn. It's not the same thing as having manure behind a fence that in the summer really heats up and develop quite a smell. Councillor Court?
Well, I was just going to mention the cemetery. I wish we could put something, I don't know if we can or not, when we discuss this in July with them. Is that where they were talking about, something to, well, whenever
Buffer.
they wanted a position on this?
Oh, yeah, they're hearing this in July, so they just said, they called their administration phone and said, does the town have a position on this so we know what it is before we have this hearing in July?
Should we have a position on that mess north of the cemetery as well? I don't know if you got a leg to stand on or not, but that's terrible
Yeah.
out there. It's the
really
same,
is.
it's the same outfit.
It may be an issue 1A, like it may be unrelated to this application, but an issue nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so councillors, are you in favor of this letter? That's what I need to know. Is there anything that needs to be changed beside what I suggested?
Jeff, the question on this barn next to 12th Street, is it going to go down where they got that little holding pond? What are they going to
we
do with
don't
that
know.
water source?
I don't know.
I mean, are we larvating that?
Nope, it's not in our jurisdiction. We don't have permission.
Really?
I just need a clarification as well now. you're worried about the long term, if we let them build on here. What is the position of the county? And when he dies, do they get rid of it, or can he pass on to
No,
his
it can pass
sons?
on.
Or,
Yeah.
so I'm guessing it doesn't matter if they put new buildings, it's going to be there for the next 50 years anyhow.
The question, I guess all I was thinking is, are we better off to have them further west than we are to have them there?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So that's all I was throwing out. I don't think it's reasonable to say he has to shut down the operation, buy a section of land somewhere else and move there.
He's going to put a building up that's going to get rid of some of the smell.
Yeah,
I can
that's
see a
positive.
positive there.
For
Well,
sure.
to me, that's the way I see it. Councillor Selk, Councillor Barnes.
I think if I recall from our ICF discussions that there was some appetite on the part of the county to have them push that whole thing farther west, not just the new facility, but the whole thing. I think there was some appetite there because they don't want it encroaching on what's developable land there for the county as well.
So it'll be interesting. This is what I want to know upon our decision tonight, if we could present our position. The position will be the letter.
So the land that's there right now, how far north does that land go?
I forget the name. I always think of it as the old Stoddard place when I
That-
grew up.
Talking
I don't know
about
what it is
Does
now.
it go
but
right by
there's-
Draper's place
Yeah,
there?
so Draper's, sorry, that's it. So
Yeah, that's what
it
I was
abuts
thinking
Draper's,
there.
yes.
Yeah, and so there is that pond there, and then they've got a huge big hole that they throw garbage in and burn it every once in a while. So the land that we're talking about that could be developed is across the street, right? North of the Agrodome there? Isn't this right by
Potentially.
it's all right there, it's all
Yeah.
ag land in that
Yeah, but
whole
we-
area, so.
Yep.
Well, I'm looking at that dairy, if that Agrodome was gonna be there for the foreseeable future,
Who knows?
personally, I don't see how this is really creating a problem, because it's still they're all right there together. I don't see a problem, but I have no problem either with it moving west, if the Agrodome's not gonna always be there, then.
Essentially, you need to kind of think, when you do planning, you can't
Look for the
think
future.
today. You
Yeah.
got to think 20 years, 30 years,
Yeah.
50 years.
Yeah,
That's the way you do planning, right?
yeah,
So
but anyways.
that's the way it goes.
I just worry if they move it further west, it's going to be butting up to the cemetery, and then we got the same problem on the east side as we do on the north side. You know, you go out there to bury someone, all you get is a smell of crap, and I mean,
I've never really smelled it bad out there.
Go in the summertime.
I do, I go there a lot.
Too.
just a mess right on the border.
All right. So essentially, let's deal with one issue at a time. Is the letter okay?
Yes.
All right,
You
so
can just approve it as amended.
we
and
will,
make that change.
we will approve that letter as amended. So who want to
Yeah.
do this?
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Court?
That we present the NCRB letter to the town with our position on the Bevins Dairy,
Okay, and with copy to the county?
with copy to the county, yes,
Okay, with the amendment.
with the amendment.
Thank you.
Do better next time.
Oh,
All
that's
in
it.
favor? Thank you. You know, we got to be precise.
Got to be right on it, yeah.
Okay, 7B, tax installment prepayment interest. You saw what Jill has proposed. It's to keep the status quo, is serving us well. It's not especially an incentive for people to do that, but it's a little something to say thank you for using that program, which is good for the town. Councillor Brown?
So I make a motion to keep the TIPP interest rate for the 2019-2020 year at 1.25%.
Okay. Questions?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead,
So
Councillor.
we're at 1.25% right now?
Yep.
And so what do we get interest on that money? Is that about what we get from the bank?
A little bit less.
Like, we're not making money on this, are we?
Yeah, you know something, we are just giving back to the people a little something.
Yeah,
Lethbridge is giving 1.5%,
yeah.
and we chose to keep it the way it is. Some years we higher, sometime we lower. Then Lethbridge, it varies.
Yeah, but
So-
we're covering our costs at this
Yeah.
Well,
level.
Is it doing the job that it's
be
supposed
down a
to be
little
doing?
bit.
So
Pardon me?
I'm a fan of the TIP program from an
Yeah.
administrative point of view because it cash flows us.
Yeah.
So even when I started 10 years ago, what we found is that we had lots of cash in July, and then we ran in our line of credit from January to June.
Which was
and
expensive.
we're paying
Cost us
almost
money.
4%.
Yeah, so it's.
And so this way we have about 500 homes right now on TIP, and so we'll take in, a little over 100,000 a month.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we barely touch our line of credit now because we can cash flow okay.
So we're saving 2.5% at least.
Between NMAX and TIP, we have good cash flow month to month.
But I mean,
Yeah,
it helps.
that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So I think it's a good thing. So we need to vote. All in favor? Thank you very much.
We are.
Yeah, so that's going to give us a little better time to discuss 7C. 7C is a meeting with the MLA. Jeff, do you want to maybe mention that you saw MLA's cow recently? Sure. And there's one item that I feel we need to add.
So I felt
Yeah,
we've had the
exactly.
provincial election. MLAs are kind of settling in. They've had a brief sitting of the legislature. They're there now again, but they'll be done in the summer, in August. And so I felt it might be time for us to ask the MLA to come sit with council, spend even a couple of hours, talk about the issues important to council. I think it's good timing if we can get him in August preparatory to AUMA, if we need to get the year of ministers, if we need to get in front of ministries. And I know you have, I listed off the top of my head some of the things I thought we may want to discuss. But I think it's important I take the time to prepare a briefing for the MLA so he doesn't come into a meeting cold.
Yeah.
So just like I prepare your agenda packages, I'd like to do the same for him on the issues you'd like to go to him. So we ran into each other here just recently, and he said he's happy to come, but he won't be back until the first part of August.
Okay, so there's an item here that is not there that I really feel should be there, so hospital. And the reason I'm saying that is that we need to start to put a little bit more pressure on that new government regarding our hospital. It's time. It's time. We are very patient, but unless we show that there is a political desire to see changes or plans for the future, nothing will happen. And right now we're in a better position because the Rotary is involved. We have met with Chief Whistlehead and Kevin Kronen of the Blood Tribe Health Services. There is a desire to move together. So, and the county is interested also. So the time is ripe, I think, to make an effort and to let them know that we exist.
Is it true that we have the oldest hospital, operating
In-
hospital
in
the
southern
province?
Alberta.
In southern Alberta, not in the province, then?
No, southern Alberta. Well, one wing is now over 60 years old. The other, more recent wing is over 40 years old. So they pump a lot of money. They have done what they promised they were going to do, is pump money. But it's starting to be a lot of money that could be used towards something maybe.
Well, we have safety issues too. When you had the big fire, they had to close the doors because all the smoke was getting in the hospital.
And they had to relocate patients
Yeah.
out
So
of
there
town.
are issues that definitely need to be up.
So there are definite issues. So if you feel you can support that initiative, let's add the hospital to it. Councillor Court, I know that you have another item that you're always very concerned about, which is the ambulance service.
Yes.
And I don't know if you want that on there or if that is more an
It somewhat goes hand in
AHS.
hand with the hospital and the ambulance service. I mean, we're seeing a situation right now play out in the courts in Lethbridge of an ambulance that went out to pick that boy up in Glenwood. That's kind of a side issue, but it wasn't properly equipped.
Well,
So those are all issues that rural areas are suffering.
I mean, we don't want to get into the legal
No, I don't, but I'm just saying
issues.
that maybe that might go with it as well. Because
Yeah.
it's not working well. You can ask just about any staff over there has to deal with it.
Well, I heard
Especially
that
nurses
in,
that are trying to pick up an ambulance for somebody to ship them somewhere.
well, what I heard is that maybe there are more code red that we are aware of.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then we need to revisit that issue.
So I'd appreciate
Okay.
having that on there.
All
as
right,
well.
so is there something else that is a concern to you? That
Or
you,
anything on that list that should come off.
yeah, or anything that you feel is maybe not as important?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What about all of these I'm seeing as great and I support, but I'm just wondering if we were to bring up our rec center idea and just see what the appetite is of this government into working in partnership with that, just bouncing it off him.
If, at a time where infrastructure needs millions and billions of dollars, would be
try.
interesting.
Just a question.
We're just asking
Sure.
for a few million, not
I mean, yeah. There is no reason for not asking, but like I say, within the budget that is not yet here,
Yeah.
we don't know what their priorities are. Yes.
I would have a question for the MLA as well. If this government's going to loosen up the restrictions that were put on the community pasture by the previous government to allow for recreation up there. Because that impacts our town as well in terms of economic development.
Okay. That's adding to the list. So anything else? I think that's quite a fair list for a meeting of council.
County did.
So Jeff
County.
felt that possibly we could give that council meeting the focus on those items and discuss those.
Good time.
There is possibly the other element that is there when we have Associate Minister Hunter that's saying that he's cut the red tape. I think regarding our electrical would be an interesting story. Maybe that might be something we want to consider.
On the list, the renewable power center.
Yeah. All right?
Sure. The UC's got a big bugaboo about dates on,
Yeah.
And the only thing that we don't have that is,
I think it's much for services.
oh no, you have it as MSI funding, yeah, I was thinking of that too. Okay, so go ahead, Jeff, and start to put a little bit of a debrief on those items. Thank you. So that would be for the August meeting, which will be August the 13th. Okay? So that's what we will be prepared to talk about. Present.
Just as a note, Mayor, I won't be there on the 13th of August. I won't be here.
Okay.
But this looks exciting, so I might need to drive 3 hours and get here to it. I don't know. We'll see.
We can Skype you in if we need to.
That's actually a good idea.
That might be an idea.
Yeah.
All right? So let's go under 8. You have a financial report as of the end of April 2019. Are there any questions regarding that financial
End of
report?
March here, March 31st.
Both are there.
they're both there.
Are they? Yep. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't get you March's last month because
Oh,
of
gotcha, okay.
mother passing.
Okay, thank you, I just found it.
Yes, correct. You got
Okay,
it.
got it. Thank you.
Well, I just mentioned the most recent because March would be encompassed in the 19th
Okay,
of the April one.
March is gone.
So we're in good financial position, as you can see. Everything's moving right. 8B, committee reports. I really realize the summer is starting. You have less and less meetings. Enjoy the free time, maybe.
Lots of free time. Yeah.
Some of them. There was something that I thought interesting, Councillor Bengry, and thank you for your detailed report. I just was wondering about the comments that you made at different places in your report that the lodges and the villa and do not have maximum capacity right now?
No. We've experienced this past year more deaths, more higher health concerns, so movement to the DAL than we ever have in the past years. But we're starting to get bodies in there now. So-
Okay, because 6 months ago, you couldn't have a place and you had no knowledge of when
That's right.
you could have a room, and all of a sudden, there is so much vacancies.
And I was sitting here thinking about that letter with the MLA, if we don't need to discuss seniors' housing, the funding for seniors' housing, you know, as it pertains to their rental and stuff like that. I'm just sitting back.
What are you thinking exactly, Councillor? Are you looking for more subsidized housing, a little bit the style of McGrath, what they had in the past?
Yes.
If they were going to start something new of that sort?
Well, they've got.
You know, that would be a question to ask, if they have something in
a facility
place.
going up in Raymond,
I know.
and I just can't see them building all these facilities and expecting to have full houses.
Well, the old Raymond one, they'll be shutting it down, but it was not in very good shape.
Well,
Really
that's the
tiny
same as
rooms and everything
McGrath,
else, so, and that's why McGrath got the new one.
Yeah.
But I think as you look at demographics, as our population, our baby boomers, yeah, you and I get older, there's going to be
The need for
a
it,
need for it, and so this might just be a
20,
time of
Temporary.
adjustments,
Prepping.
yeah. All right. Beside that, any
Any update
question?
on the Mormon Trail? Have you heard back from them about your,
No, we're waiting for
Bombshell that you
that,
dropped
we're
on.
waiting for that letter to come back. Jeff, I have not sent you a new letter? No. So we're waiting.
okay,
I did not enjoy our comments.
I may run into a few counselors down there at the parade on Monday. I might hear from them, so
I am sure you will.
Do you need candy?
I'll have some for
I
you.
represented the opposition that didn't like it. It's okay. We're not always there to be liked.
What did you tell them?
Exactly what you told me to say.
Good.
That's frankly Scarlet.
And, yeah.
We're one voice out there.
The temperature went up in the room. 8C, peace officer reports. Any comments regarding that? You can see Brad is fairly busy.
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
Jeff, so on this where it says we had one attack,
By a dog to
Yeah.
another dog.
so when that happens, is the dog put down? Like, is it the same as a dog attacking a person?
I'm trying to think of the context of this one. So
Stories on any of this, so I'm just wondering.
But a dog attacking another.
I understand
Animal.
that.
are you looking at sorry, he had two of them in here as well, but,
The one I'm looking at is just under the quick references. It
oh,
says
yeah, okay.
one attack,
Yeah.
bite another
Yeah.
animal.
So we've actually had two or I think maybe we're up to 4 incidents in the Creek Valley on the nature trail, people just leaving their dogs off leash, and they run up and attack another dog on leash.
Okay.
So we've had that a couple of times. Now, this one was the earlier one. That dog was voluntarily put down by the owner. And then we've had another one where the dog, there was just fines and conditions on the dog and looking at some aggressive animal designation.
Okay.
So they're all a little bit different. And like I said, in the one case, the owner agreed to put the dog down. That isn't always the case, as you can imagine. So they may get a designation and fines.
Okay, thank you.
I talked to you last week about response times. Did that get taken to the police group that we're going to talk?
We haven't had an ad hoc at all on that yet.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Mike DeWinter was complaining about some of the response times on the highway. That's why I was
Yeah.
putting up there, so.
To what?
Well, there was a
To
couple of
calls.
the calls.
Yeah.
And the RCMPers he thinks they're slept, well, they might be slept them onto our bylaw guy a little bit more than our peace officer. He said there was an incident up there on the highway that took them, two people that were high or inebriated, it took them 45 minutes to get up there. And he's had a person pass out in his car wash that he had to move, and he's just worried a little bit about the response
Yeah.
times is all.
Yeah, yeah.
He's in a bad
Is
location
that
there.
a Brad? Is that a Brad call or
Well,
is
that's-
that
that's-
RCMP?
So this is a bit of the
That's the
issue
coin
where
toss.
Yeah.
we're hearing a little bit of feedback, and I haven't talked to Sergeant Hodge about this, but we're hearing a little bit of feedback that people are calling the RCMP and they're saying that's a bylaw issue.
Yeah.
Call the peace officer. Well,
That's
Brad
what
only
Mike told
works
me.
8 hours a day,
Right.
right? And so if it's late at night or different hours, if he's on, he'll go. That's not the issue, right? But he doesn't work, the 20-hour day that the RCMP staff, right?
Right.
And so there is a little bit of feedback that we're hearing more of that out of the detachment. But again, I want to be very clear in saying I have not spoken to Sergeant Hodge about that.
Okay. Jeff, just regarding that, is there a chance for Brad and the RCMP to kind of communicate
Well, they-
regarding his agenda?
They talk daily about it, yeah, for
So,
sure.
because if they have his agenda, they should respect the man
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
They wouldn't do that with their own officers.
yeah.
And also, I guess, where are we at with the possibility of getting another level 1 peace officer here? Is that
Probably not.
still happening?
Yeah, I touched base with Wade and McGrath last week, and they were discussing it tonight at their meeting. It's
Okay.
on their agenda tonight.
After that, we'll
Or-
know what's
Yeah, we
going to
might know
happen.
tomorrow.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
So 8D, capital projects report. You can see what's happening there. Questions?
Yeah, when's the rain going to stop so they can keep going?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have work to do. Councillor Selk?
One cut the other night.
Repaving priorities, Jeff. Good luck with that.
Yeah, thanks. I actually don't know what he has in mind yet, because I haven't talked to him since we talked, but yeah, thanks.
Okay, just saying.
Yeah. All right, 8E, the CAO report. You can see that Jeff was a busy man, one more time. And if you're wondering about that monument that we are trying to support, there is a grant application that's going to be completed very soon, and the town will see to it that it'll be sent to the proper authority. Okay?
If
Councillor
I can
Brown?
just add to, so on the Parks and Rec side of things, he talks about the feedback on the town square diamonds and stuff. They're fantastic. Like,
They look really
people
good.
are super excited. The people who live around them are excited. People that are coming to visit from Raymond, McGrath, everywhere, they're blown away at the level that they have been built. And I think we just need to also take a minute and appreciate the fantastic pickleball court that was created on the tennis ball.
Yeah, it
If
looks
we can
great.
just take a moment for that, because it's fantastic. And seriously, we were hearing great feedback from that as well. They love it, and it's hopping. People are on there all the time. So
Well-
that right there means that we're doing
pickleball.
good things.
I said, you're our pickleball expert on that thing, so.
Well, I'm
Painter,
really,
too.
And he's the painter.
I'm really glad we're doing good
It's nice
for
to hear
the people
positives.
of this town. It's good, it's important, right? So, that's very good. We shall carry on, and Jeff, I really would like you to thank your manager, Bart, for all that was done the day that they had all the high school and middle school and
Oh, that was awesome.
the elementary come and visit. They did absolutely a stunning job with the three organization, and I think the feedback was very positive from those organization too. school board was quite impressed, and I would like it to be an annual item, I understand.
Yeah.
So please thank him on our behalf.
You get questions as to why we have 2 8-foot-tall power poles in the West Industrial Area going nowhere. It's for the Public Works Week.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
It was very well done. All right,
Can I just make a comment about that
Go
too?
ahead.
When I went up there and I took the time to go and visit some of the students and talk to them and ask them what they felt about it. And it was interesting. The feedback was fantastic. They didn't realize what was going on. And there was a group of girls, and I asked these girls if they were interested in this type of thing. They'd never been an option in their mind. They were thinking about school in terms of university. And I said to them, we have great trade schools around here. I said, the Lethbridge College has a fabulous trades program. And I said, Calgary's got a great trades program. And I told them that, I said, ladies make wonderful welders, and they're great electricians, and they're great plumbers. And they said, we didn't realize that. And I said, take a look at it. Do some research. I said, there's a good field there, and they make good living doing those things.
that's
And
right.
they didn't realize that, and so they thanked me for that information. So it was very positive. I really enjoyed being up there,
Good.
just despite of the wind that day.
I brought them goodies. That's what I did.
Of course you did. Thanks, Mom.
Well, keep the belly full is good. Yeah.
Jeff, when we talk about that Public Works Week, could we not involve maybe the college and places like that? Almost, remember we used to have the career days.
Yeah.
They still
They still do?
at the high school.
But that is, could we involve some of the,
We had electrical apprentice kids here for that program. So we had Lethbridge College electrical apprentice kids going through it, telling them about their experience in school. So we did have that part from Lethbridge College.
good?
And we also manned a number of booths at their career day. So,
Because they would have the brochures, the handouts.
yeah, we did
Make it a
involve
little bit more
Lethbridge
involved.
College apprenticeship on the lineman program.
And really, kudos to those kindergarten teacher who managed to get all the students to sign a mega poster that I have at home. It's very kind of them. We took pictures on the lawn with them, and they had lots of fun. They enjoyed that. Okay. Let's carry on with number 10. There is a news release from Minister Kesimadou. And
Just to
for you to
introduce
to know.
yourself, yeah.
And there is also 10B, an Alberta Ombudsman information sheet there for you. Nothing that requires our decision. As far as this is
You've
going
way
there,
quicker than I thought hit the end of your agenda. You have a public hearing at 6.
Yes.
I actually have a few things related to that I could go over with you as a council that aren't necessary for the public hearing between now and then if no one's here for the public hearing, you're done.
please go
That
ahead.
work for you?
Sure.
So I have a few things I wanted to go over after my meeting yesterday that aren't necessary for the public hearing, but I was going to do it as part of it if that's where we
Yeah.
got to anyway.
Okay.
So give me just 1 second to set up here.
Jeff was in Calgary yesterday with Alex and with Kevin, our consultant on electrical, and I went and met with a representative of NMAX, the solar division, and so he has a little bit of update, but at this point, not full answers to
Yeah.
what we desired.
So what I wanted to talk with you about is I don't want to say that I've been frustrated with this process, but there's been some ambiguity in the process that's caused us to drag on a little bit. So you'll recall, Council, you passed first reading on that borrowing bylaw back in March.
Yeah.
And I don't have what I consider the best information for you to move ahead, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I wanted to do some explanation. This project falls under the large-scale microgen project in the regulation. Now, let me just grab out a couple notes here. To be fair, this is pretty new legislation. So there aren't a ton of applications under this legislation yet, and this is a considerably sized project. And so we've been going back and forth. When we got the proposal from NMAX, I sent it to Kevin Phillips, and Kevin did an analysis and sent me back 8 or 10 questions that were kind of red flags and concerns for him as far as the legislation goes, and being confident in the revenue projections of the proposal. And part of it is, if we take this facility and we take the ice rink, those are small scale microgen. And so we simply net meter. So we put out what we produce, goes through the meter as a credit. What we use comes back through the meter as a charge. And it's very stable and it's pretty easy to predict because we'll always get credit in the same amount we pay. That's how that works. So whatever our electricity bill is here, how many dollars per megawatt or cents per kilowatt is what we get when we produce electricity. Large scale microgen is different. And we actually have a bit of a disagreement here between us and NMAX on this. And that's why I got everybody on the phone last week and I said, look, if we can have a meeting at 9 a.m. on Monday in Calgary and all of NMAX's people can be there and Kevin can be there and I can be there, then let's do it. And we were able to do that yesterday. So we just got up early and hit the road. But I wanted to just explain how this large-scale microgen works, and we need to do a different type of analysis to determine whether this makes sense. Once you exceed 150 kilowatts of annual production, you become large scale. And we're proposing 1.9 megawatts. So we're 10-fold, 15-fold over that criteria. And so we will be, if we go through with this, and by the way, I say this like it has a negative connotation. It may make just as well a business case as the small scale microgen. The business case might be just as good. But we will be subject to the power pool pricing for everything we generate and everything we consume. And so it adds a level of unpredictability in some ways because I don't know and NMAX doesn't know and Kevin Phillips doesn't know what the power pool pricing looks like next month or in a year from now, or heaven forbid in a 20-year project what it looks like 20 years from now. We don't know. But I wanted to explain, so we're all on the same page, what I wanted to go over before the public hearing was how the power pool works. Now, I am not an expert on it, so take this with a small grain of salt, but I think I'm correct. I put a hypothetical scenario up on the board. And what this is showing is how the power pool works is every generator in the province must submit to the power pool how much electricity they anticipate generating and what they want for it, what their price is. And you must do this every hour of every day. That's how it works. So you have people at NMAX and EPCOR and AltaLink and the big generators in front of computers with massive algorithms trying to predict peak pricing, trying to predict demand, and then pricing their power every hour of every day to the power pool. So this is a hypothetical. Wind and solar generally going at $0. So if we create a solar farm, we will submit to the power pool every hour for a whole year at $0. And we will be what's called a price taker. We will take whatever the market value is. We will not dictate a price. And the reason is there's so little power, there's so little renewable making up the total power pool that you would never be all they need. They're always going to need a different source. So I have two scenarios, and by the way, the scale of these and the numbers of these are purely hypothetical because provincial demand would exceed 3,500 megawatts every second. But I'm just grabbing a number here. So let's say in scenario one, provincial demand is 3,500 megawatts, and what you see in the middle column is the total quantity of megawatts available any given hour by these different companies. So solar has 20 megawatts, and they're putting it out at $0. Wind has 50. A number of coal guys went in at 100 for $10. Gas went in at 100 for $12, and so on. The massive coal had 2,000 for $12, and so on. So if the provincial demand is 3,500, that would be, and by the way, I realize my math on that was a little bit incorrect, but it's close. The pool will go and say, we're going to start at the lowest price and work our way up until we've achieved the quantity we want, and that's whose power we're going to buy. And everybody gets the price of the highest bidder. That's what makes you a price taker. So in this case, if we were in the solar at 0, but they needed to take up to that gas generator,
That give us 15.
we would get $15 a megawatt because we're a price taker. So everybody gets the highest price. That's how the pool works. Now, there are companies out there that, there are large manufacturing companies in the province of Alberta that will shut down their manufacturing, turn on all their generation, and feed it into the power pool when they know the demand is highest in the province because it's more lucrative to do that. So they might be that gas source at the very top where they're the guy out there saying, we predicted a spike in demand, so we're going to put 10 megawatts out there at $200 in that hour because we think we're going to get it. So that would be, so in this case, everybody gets 15 in that scenario. In the second scenario, if provincial demand was 5,500, they have to go up the list and say, okay, we're going to take everybody because we need all of it. Next hour, we need all of the available electricity, and the highest guy was $200 a megawatt, and so everybody gets $200 a megawatt. Every single megawatt of electricity we buy for that hour gets $200. And that's how we manage the power pool in the province of Alberta. So under the large-scale microgen, we are subject to power pool pricing. So again, we would submit, hypothetically, if we did this, we would submit every hour at 0, and we would be a price taker. And subject to that. Now, the flip side of that is we are also a price taker on what we purchase. So we would no longer be allowed to have long-term fixed electricity contracts. We can't say, the AUC is telling us, you can't come in and say, we're going to lock in for 5 years at 5 cents, but we also want the peak pricing on what we sell.
Yeah.
They're saying, no, you got to do one or the other.
So we can never predict income outcome.
Correct.
Up to a certain point.
I mean, there are, so what I'll get into in my next
Yeah.
slide.
Up to a
is
certain point.
When we left the meeting yesterday, what we said to NMAX is, how do we have some surety of the revenue of this project over time?
Right.
Because I know what it is when it's a fixed contract price. It's always what I'm paying. It's really easy to determine. And so actually Kevin and I got to meet without NMAX after in their room, and I'd said to Kevin, I said, can they model the
Trends.
how accurately do you think they can model the power pool going forward? And he said, they probably have the best information in the province because they're a major generator. Like they have a business plan that depends on them predicting the power pool because they have major generation assets. So I'll go to my other slide here, and I want to talk about what the next stage is here in. And by the way, I'm kind of happy about how I made all these neat graphs on my. I don't know what the arrow is in the middle of that. Actually, I don't know where that came from. It's not on my screen, but it's on there. So ignore that. So what we agreed with NMAX is we need to overlay a number of projections to determine if this thing might look profitable. So the first one is. And by the way, this chart I'm showing you, the bottom row is time. 12 on the left side is midnight, 12 in the middle is noon, and then 10 p.m. on the right side. And we said, let's take a typical day. Let's take a typical sunny June day. And let's predict what the solar production curve looks like. By the way, the curve size and height is purely hypothetical. It doesn't mean
So
anything.
this is production.
So this is what our solar farm would hypothetically produce on a sunny June day. Now, is that a cloudy day? Nope. But for a normal sunny day, that's what the curve would look like. Then we said, let's overlay what the town's demand curve looks like. So on that exact same day, how much do we need? What kind of electricity does the town of Cardston need? And so we always have things running 24 hours a day. The sewer plant runs 24 hours a day. The water plant runs 24 hours a day. So we have consumption all the time. And yet we don't have production all the time. So when the sun's not shining, we're not producing anything. Right. We are, and so I shaded in some areas here. You see how I'm getting crafty on this. Mm-hmm. So that shaded area is times when we are a net consumer. We need external electricity to operate our facilities because we are not producing anything. So at that point in time, we are buying from the power pool.
Yep.
Now, the nice thing, coincidentally, about that time is those are also the low demand times provincially. You don't have a high electrical demand at 4 a.m. You don't have a high electrical demand at 10 p.m. Those are the historically low times. Conversely, in the middle, we will have times on a typical day when we are net generators. We are generating excess to our needs. And so, in a perfect world, we are selling all of that back to the power pool, and that also coincides with peak times. So the price is high. Come on in, folks.
Hi.
And so the question is, how many of those days do we have that predict our revenue versus how many we don't have that predict the cost? And so what NMAX is going to do is they're going to take their projections, and so my next line here, that little green line, would be an example of overlaying then the power pool pricing. So we would say, okay, from midnight till 8, the power pool price might be, I don't know, $50 a megawatt. Again, it's hypothetical. At 8 o'clock, we're all getting up, we're showering, we're turning on appliances, we're doing all that. So now we're at
$100.
$20 a megawatt, I don't know. And then at 4 o'clock, when it's 28 degrees out, and 5 o'clock, we go home, we turn on the air conditioner, we turn on the dryer, the laundry, the oven, we're making dinner, we've hit provincial peak. Mm-hmm. And so when we can overlay all three of those layers, we can say, okay, there will be times when we have excess generation during peak demand, projecting a price we'll get for that, and start making a bottom line here. And then we'll see all kinds of, the purple line is just hypothetically, today, for example, that would be what demand would look like. Nobody's running their air conditioners tonight, but it's not particularly cold, so nobody's running a furnace either. And so the demand that day in our hypothetical scenario stays flat. Really, it stays flat. Mm-hmm. So you're not really getting any kind of peak premium pricing. You're going to get this relatively flat price all day. But you're not paying a peak either. Right? You're not paying to the peak. So these are the things that I want to bring back to council. And NMAX is committed to do this analysis. And what they're going to do is look at it historically over the whole 2018 year and then project it over the future. So we have good data on 2018. We know exactly what the power pool pricing was every hour of every day in 2018. We know exactly. We know exactly what the town demand was every hour of every day in 2018. We don't know our facilities exactly, but we're just going to take the town demand and scale it down to the town facilities. So we have something to overlay.
Okay, Jeff, our sewer plant and our water plant basically levels out every day. It uses the...
Yeah, they run pretty consistently every day. We have peak times in the morning when everyone's getting ready. It's a peak time for both plants. And in the evenings when everyone's home, it's a peak time for them as well.
Okay, so we've had a very cool spring.
Yep.
And so what's it going to do if we're generating all this power and we're not using it?
Well, then we're selling it back at the pool
You're selling
price.
it and you make your money.
But every community in Alberta that has a solar farm is doing the same thing. So our price that we're going to get for it is in the toilet.
Not necessarily, because again, renewables is 0.1% of total provincial generation.
Okay.
It's absolutely so small.
Right, we still, so just a quick breakdown, and this is last year's numbers. 45% of provincial generation is coal, 45% is natural gas. A total of about it's just a little over 5% is wind and solar. And then there's some biomass and hydro and a bunch of other little guys that make up the other 5%. So I asked that very question, Councillor. I said, as the amount of solar and wind going into the power pool at $0 increases, are we ever going to hit a time when the power pool can take all that at zero? Is that a risk? And both Kevin and NMAX said, not going to happen. We're making up 0.1% of the power pool requirements right now.
Okay.
0.1. It's just not going to happen. But it's a good thought, and I asked the exact same question because I was concerned.
Councillor.
Compared to Raymond, how much are we going to be producing? Apparently they're done. They're set up and they're running. Have you had a chance to talk to Curtis to see what their results are?
I'm trying to think well, they haven't had much generation time to compare yet, right? And I'm going to say this incredibly carefully. I'm not convinced that that project is running under the correct legislation.
Right.
I think they're running under the small capacity microgen, and they're going to find out they're not. Now, the difference in Raymond is that on many of those facilities, they tied the generation, it's on the same site, same plot as the load. So they only have 2 sites that are aggregated sites, where the load is not attached to the generation. So on this, the generation is attached to the load. On the ice rink, the generation is attached to the load. What we're proposing with this field is, it's way the heck over there, and we're aggregating a bunch of sites and assigning them to that.
So are we looking about the same size of a project as what they've done?
No, it's far bigger than
Far
theirs.
bigger
I
than
would
theirs.
say, I think, Councillor, theirs was 1.2 megawatts, I think, and we're 1.9.
Up there by their football field.
Yeah, I think
they
their
got-
total, with all the buildings and everything included, was 1.2, something like that.
Ours
So
will-
this alone is 1.9, plus we've already done these 2, which are considerable as well.
Councillor Barnes?
Okay, Jeff, if I recall, about a couple of weeks ago, that Premier Kenny mentioned that there were a couple of major generation sites that they were that the previous government was going to take offline, but now they've decided to keep them.
Right.
How is that going to affect our need to go with this solar
So
system?
again, you're always going to be able to get rid of your solar because you're a price taker.
Yeah,
You're in that small percentage of generation that's always going to be a price taker, and so you're not playing that big game like the big coal generation.
right.
So they're not a price taker. They're setting a price.
They're setting
they
a price,
have to have a
exactly.
certain amount per megawatt, or this thing doesn't work.
Right, yeah.
So we go in as a price taker, and it shouldn't impact us dramatically.
Okay.
Mayor, it's 6 o'clock.
Yes, we
And so
need
you
to.
need to adjourn to your public hearing, which will be reasonably short. I'll turn the light back on.
Okay.
And I'll introduce it and everything, Mayor, but you just need to do the resolution to go to public hearing.
Okay, so we need to adjourn this current meeting, and we need to have a motion
Don't adjourn your
to.
council meeting.
No,
Just
we need to
a
move to the public hearing.
I'll make that motion to move.
Okay.
Oh, go
Do you want
ahead.
to do
Go
that?
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I don't know.
You already
Make a
spoke.
motion to move to public hearing.
Thank you. And welcome to our guests, visitors. Thank you for taking the time to come. This is a very important item for us. It's a borrowing bylaw regarding a solar farm that we're trying to do. We have had experience with solar for the past year, and we have been successful having the solar panels on our 2 buildings, and they have done exactly what we expected them to do. So at this point, we are looking at a much larger project, and the project is to really cover all the buildings that the town owns to be powered through solar farm, therefore a borrowing bylaw. So maybe I'll turn it to Jeff to help us understand the magnitude of.
So there's some formality you need to go through in a public hearing for borrowing. So if you would bear with me, I'll
You need to read it.
go through the formality. So this public hearing is for a borrowing bylaw for the town of Cardston to incur debt through financing for the purposes of installing a solar farm currently planned to be located in the West Industrial Area. The project also includes the required road, fencing, and electrical line infrastructure upgrades. The purpose is to do a 1.9 megawatt solar farm. We went through a approved and appropriate tendering process for the solar farm, and Max Energy was a successful proponent for that. However, the acceptance of that contract was conditional. It was conditional on receiving the grant from MCCAC, and also a resolution of council to approve their contract, which neither has been confirmed. The total project is anticipated to be $4,163,309.71. I anticipate that'll be subject to some small changes. Part of our discussion yesterday with NMAX was tweaking some of the terms to see what was most beneficial for the town. It may be more beneficial for the town to borrow some capital outside of the NMAX proposal to increase our down payment, which would reduce actually our interest charges from NMAX, but that's going to be explored a little bit further. But we talked about that yesterday. There is a proposed Municipal Climate Change Action Center grant of $1,396,665.80 from the province of Alberta to offset the total project, leaving a total of $2,766,643.91 to be financed, not exceeding 20 years. Now, I say that council has full discretion over the terms, but that was in our earlier debate the appropriate return on investment, it seemed. That'd be a 5% return on investment. And the estimated life for the project is expected to be at least 35 years. The panels carry a warranty of 30 years in their output. They have a 0.5% annual degradation factor, but that was factored into the overall time frame and financing of the project. And other than that, that's the big chunks of the bylaw. Now, for the purposes of our gallery, I was explaining to council just a bit before this, not part of the public hearing, that we're just working through our projections on the revenue a little better. I was not satisfied completely with the projections in the proposal, and so we've asked for those to be reviewed with a different methodology just to ensure we don't get ourselves into any kind of financial millstone situation here where it doesn't perform as anticipated. So I'd be more, as you saw in my backgrounder, council, I'm not recommending an additional reading on this bylaw after the public hearing. I think it would behoove us to wait for these second projections where we overlay the generation and demand curves and get better numbers. Other than that, I think that's everything I wish to put forward for the borrowing bylaw public hearing. Mayor, if your delegations would like to speak to it, or that I can take any questions from the council.
Are you here to speak to the bylaw, or are you there to get informed?
For information, we have no proposal.
Do you have questions at this time regarding this project, or just interest?
Well, a question that comes to mind, and undoubtedly with this body, it has been considered. I heard as we came in that we know demand for every hour of last year. We know the price for every hour of last year. That is one data point, one set of data points. When we project that into the future, is there any strong correlation with the growth of Cardston? Is Cardston expected to grow particularly? What will that do to the demand at town-owned facilities? And does that have anything to do with the payback, 20 years, as I understand? Has that been considered? Undoubtedly it has. What does that say?
It's an interesting question. Go ahead.
Speak with my back halfways to you. Sorry about that. It's a good point, and I think the thing to note here is we can only build a project equal to the demand of our current infrastructure now. Now, can we scale it in the future? Absolutely. So if we have new infrastructure that has high demand, we can scale that. But the regulation only allows us to go up to the demand of the corporation. So not the town collectively, not your house and my house and Corey's house, etc. But the buildings that the town owns as a corporation, that is the maximum size the project can be, to which is what we've sized for this. Today, correct. And we have the option to scale it in the future. Yeah.
Councillor Bengry.
Jeff, with that in mind, I appreciate that question, a very viable question. With that in mind, if the county comes to the town of Cardston, expects more water into their county, what's can we base that on our projection right now?
So if we have an infrastructure improvement that has significant electrical demand, yes, we can scale up at
Yeah,
that point,
yeah.
for sure.
At that point?
Yeah, we can't do it now because we've sized this to be what our maximum demand historically has shown that it is.
Okay.
For the
Yeah.
present buildings
Yeah.
as they sit
Yeah.
and as they operate. Right.
So I should qualify. I assume it can be scaled in the future, but we all know this legislation is changing all the time, and it's amending, and we're seeing, even this microgen regulation is really a brand new piece of legislation. And we've already seen with our proposal how there's a little bit of ambiguity in the legislation. So our consultant's looking at it saying, I don't agree with how they looked at some of these projections and what they're saying the return is, and we're having to have some of that debate. It was good discussion, good debate, but it was necessary.
And so this is why we have a consultant, and other towns did not have that consultant, went ahead maybe a little bit in a hurry. So we're a little bit more cautious.
So in the future, let's say that we decide to build another town building. At that time, we can upscale
Yeah.
the project and
Yep.
add that building
Yep.
to it, right?
Yep, we can. Now, what you may find, Councillor, in let's say we replace the town hall. Let's just say this is not an efficient building, by the way. It's pretty old, fairly inefficient. We may find that we build, if we decommission this and build one that's more efficient, we don't have a need because we decommissioned this. We wouldn't have a need to add to the farm.
Right.
But if we kept it and added another building, then at least under the current regulation, my understanding is, yes, you can continue to scale. You just have to show the demand. You have to prove the demand.
All right. Is there
Anything
any other
else?
questions from the gallery? No?
I think we've asked that question.
Thank you so much for coming. It's always delightful to see people come and show an interest in what we're trying to do.
Well, and one other thing is we get these new projections and these new numbers, keep in touch. Be happy to give you what comes in. It'll be public to council, just that
Yeah.
as soon as we have it, it'll come to a public meeting, and you're welcome to anything like that for your information. So just let me know.
Okay. So do you need a motion to go back
If you feel you've concluded the public hearing, you will reconvene to council and finish your business there.
Okay, we don't need any motion to do so.
Make a
No,
motion
we
to
gotta reconvene.
Reconvene to council.
Yes, that's what I thought.
I make a motion to reconvene to council.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you so much. All right, so let's go back to 6E. That's the last item of business that we have currently, and that is regarding that borrowing bylaw and the solar farm. And as you could see in the background that Jeff gave us, all the information that he wants is not satisfying him yet. So we shall wait, be patient. We know that the funds, the project has been approved, so funding is potentially there.
I should mention that the grant funding for MCCAC is ambiguous beyond the next provincial fiscal year, but because we've been Phase 1 approved already with our Phase 2 application in, they're telling us that it is earmarked for us should we choose to go ahead.
So we don't have to be concerned about that aspect, and we have about a year to,
Yeah, I mean, time is
To do
still
that.
mildly of the essence.
Right, so-
I don't want to see our decision go much past probably September or October.
Right.
We need good data in front of us by next month. I was going to mention before we went to the public hearing, when I met with Kevin after, and I might have mentioned this, I said, look, what kind of level of surety, and I mentioned this to NMAX in the meeting, I said, I don't want some pie-in-the-sky or power pool projections here.
Exactly.
Like, I need to be able to manage this, the potential downside or the reality of the project. Please don't sell me this projection. And Kevin, with NMAX out of the room, said that they will have good data. They will have good projections. And he was confident that their projections should be something we can it's as good as anybody's going to have because everybody's estimating, right? Nobody knows the future of the balancing pool.
Kevin used to work for Enmark, so Kevin kind of knows the
Yeah.
culture there,
Yeah,
which is helpful to us too.
yeah. So I'm
Okay.
reasonably confident in those numbers that come back.
All right, so Councillor, the wisdom will say, let's wait, let's get better data, and let's make a decision when we were informed.
Yep.
I think we will feel better about it.
Yep.
Okay? So, having said that, we don't have anything else to do.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. From, we never done